The conditions on the Laguna were like, we have to get out of the Laguna.
We're about to get wet.
And we took a couple of waves over the bow that, they soaked us, but they weren't enough volume of water to sink us.
I could probably rename this trip the trip of failed spots that always work for me.
Also, I'm going to pause right now and say every marina needs to stock Doritos Dynamitos.
Dude, that whole trip gave me a new appreciation for ice cream sandwiches.
If we're going to talk about finding camps, if you're curious about this process, it's best if there's daylight.
Are you starting to stretch in the middle of a podcast?
I wasn't. I mean, you got to think, Reagan and I have already eaten through all of our little Slim Jims, and I mean, we're running on salt water and like grass weed out of the marsh back here. I mean,
who knew that redfish could play dead? It's one of those where you're sitting there and you're looking up at the stars, and about 5 minutes goes by, and then Cole or I look at each other and we're like, did they say they're going flounder gigging?
We're kind of the northern extent of where like I'm really comfortable and I really know, and it's kind of that scene in Lord of the Rings where like if I take one more step, it's the furthest I've ever been from home. All right, guys, welcome to another episode of the Skiff Wanderer Podcast. Today, I'm sitting down with some guys that I did a trip with. This is the Border to Bayou breakdown video. We got done with the whole trip. We'd spent so much time together, and we smelled so bad that we couldn't stand being around each other any longer. So we all went our own ways and got showered up. And this is actually the first time we've all been in a room together since that trip.
Actually, this is the first time in a room together ever because we were outside the whole time.
We didn't even get to share a tent.
Yeah, I mean, this is it.
Our first indoor experience. Yep.
So I've got Cole and Michael from Going Native, and then I've got Will and Reagan from Turtlebox.
I'm honored you remember my name after
you got
a few months.
You got a name tag on.
Oh,
gotcha.
Knows how he forgot our names. No name tag, no name.
Dude, I'm
right?
under pressure. Before we get started, I'll let you guys go ahead and just kind of introduce yourself and, just the usual one fun fact so that everybody knows who's who.
My name's Cole Rickerson. I'm faster than Michael.
Wow. Just bringing the heat.
My name's Michael, and I taught Cole how to run.
My name's Will. I was on the trip.
My name's Reagan, and this was my first saltwater fly experience, period.
And
really?
Can still do a backflip.
The first one I tried, though, I barely made it right. That boat was kind of a marshmallow.
It's like a full-on faceplant in the video.
The video
great.
does get it perfect. It's a good angle. Well done, Cole.
So, we're sitting down. We're at the Turtlebox HQ. We're getting ready for premiere number 2. If you guys came out to Austin, we thank you so much for that. And everyone that came out to Houston, since this will come out after, we really appreciate all the support. And also from you guys at Turtlebox and the guys at Duck Camp for helping make this trip happen. So basically, we'll just start. I'm just going to jump right into it. Cole hit me up. And we had wanted to do some kind of collaboration together, and I had seen Owen and some other guys do this trip. I think in 2019 they did it, and I just ever since I saw they did it, like I've been itching, raring to go, ready to go. And so talking to Cole, I was like, "Hey, I've got a crazy idea. Let's run some skiffs border to Bayou." And Cole was like, "Let's go."
Yeah, and mind you, this is before we've ever met. This is our first phone call together. We're like, yeah, 7 days on a 17.5-foot boat. Well, that sounds about right.
It's a solid. More, yeah. And then, so we started planning out what we were going to do, and we knew that we wanted a second skiff to come. And I had seen the Turtlebox guys, I'd seen you guys do the Devil's River trip. I said, man, if there's a couple guys that I know would be 100% down to go do something crazy, it's these guys from Turtlebox. So, we talked to Will and got it all arranged. And just then it was all just planning out logistics. Got to thank my wife for driving me to and from boat ramps at other ends of Texas.
Oh, yeah. She made it happen.
And she met us in Louisiana and dropped us off in
Mexico, basically.
Basically Mexico. Yeah. It's a lot of driving.
Yeah. So yeah, let's see. Day one, actually not even day one. Like, you guys showed up to the house unannounced. I walk outside and you're just sitting in the skiff.
We call it our eHarmony moment. That's when we met.
Yeah.
Decided, this might work.
So we get down to South Padre, get the skiff in the water. Now, one of the things is that we had going on was Will and Reagan had obligations, so they weren't going to meet us right off the gate. And, you know, we had a fantastic plan that we had put together about where we were going to meet and when we were going to meet. And as you'll hear as you keep listening, as most plans, that one went right out the window almost immediately. So we get the skiff in the water and we've got a little bit of time. So we go down into South Bay and, you know, Cotter, you want to talk about fishing South Bay?
Well, I was the only one that caught a fish in South Bay.
We're going to go that direction?
No. I'm just kidding. After dubious amounts of instruction and aid. South Bay was super cool. I didn't even know, I didn't know that you could fish and see silhouettes of space rockets.
Yeah.
In one place.
Yeah.
So that was
pretty
really
cool.
neat.
Yeah.
And it genuinely feels like you're in the middle of nowhere. I mean, you are super removed. It feels like you're on a Caribbean trip.
Yeah.
So that was really cool and exciting to get the boat in the water and for it to be a tangible reality.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a big moment. Like, you know, we get the skiff in the water and it kind of hits you at that point of like, this is home for the next week. And the only way we're getting out of this boat is if we get it. Well, I guess we could have got picked up somewhere else, but
that wasn't an option.
Our whole plan was to try and find a snook real quick, and we managed to stumble across 3, but we weren't ready at all. And then we finally made the decision, like, it was time to go north. So I'd been watching the wind leading up to it, and we'd had a pretty stiff southeast wind, so I knew that crossing the lower Laguna was going to be tough. I didn't know how tough because I was going into a little bit of water that I didn't know at all. And we start making our way up, and we're kind of running the ICW, and I think we took 2 waves through the boat.
Yeah, all the way through.
Yeah. And that's when I was like, oh no. I was like, in my mind, I was like, oh, this is going to be a long trip because this is day 1, first big run we're making. We're taking waves through the boat, and basically, like, through my mind was like, we got to hug the coast. We got to get into shallower water where we're a little more protected. So we managed to get up the coast, get up towards the coast, get a little more protected, and we decided, finally, we got to a place where we decided to do a little bit of fishing. And cool.
Yeah, I mean, we come up on this flat, and on Onyx and stuff, the flat looks primo and great. And Peter's like, yeah, there's gonna be water up there. And we come up, and we're coming out of this cut, and Peter's on the polling platform, and we just feel like the nose of the boat like hit sand, and we're like, maybe there's just a lip right there. We got to get over that lip, get onto the flat, and it'll be smooth sailing from there. And so we have the wind in our backs, and so we kind of go past the point of return, and we're pushing the boat, dragging bottom, and we get like 40 yards into the flat, and we're like, it's not getting deeper. and I think the video shows it well. I mean, Peter's up at the front, and Michael and I are just pushing the boat, and he's up there on redfish watch trying to find redfish as we push the boat, not from the pulling platform, and across the flat. And honestly, that was kind of a highlight of the trip for me. It's just one of those memorable days. Peter,
the 2-mile push across the flat.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Those are the things that you remember, and I don't know. It's pretty cool. And we were seeing redfish on that flat.
When we first got on it, we were seeing them.
We saw 4 or 5 reds, and we even got shots at them, but couldn't connect. And So after, I mean, it took us, 2 hours to get off that flat? And
Way too long.
Way too long. So we run the boat up, and at this point it's 6 o'clock or so. So we're trying to find an island to camp on for the night and find an awesome island. Peter pulls up an island and find a nice beach, and we set the tents up, and we kind of all disperse in different directions and try to go catch some fish. And it was
You found one.
I did find one. We
Yeah.
were able to put a redfish to hand for the first one of the trip, and I think the funniest part is so windy. I'm 100 yards away, and they're kind of in the boat, just settling down, and I'm screaming at them. I'm like, I got a fish! Get the camera! And finally, I'm like, I just need to land it, and I just hear Peter go, get the effing camera! I'm like, finally somebody heard, and yeah, and that's kind of where we're at. We got first fish to hand and kind of set the tone for the trip.
Yeah, definitely. And then that first night, oh man, that first night, I don't know what time it was, but I got woke up in the middle of the night to a deer probably like 10 feet from my tent just blowing at me, and it scared I couldn't see anything. It's pitch dark.
Yeah.
Like,
and they come creeping in on
Oh
you too.
my
It sounds like
goodness.
somebody's tiptoeing into the camp.
I didn't like that, especially like when you start hearing the coyotes howling on the same island you're camped on. You're like, are we about to have a deer get taken down in the middle of camp?
And we were south enough to be a little bit concerned about the goings on of other living beings in the camp.
Oh yeah. So that first night, that kind of set the mood for camping. I was like, oh my goodness, this is gonna be every night. We're gonna wake up to deer running through camp and coyotes howling everywhere. But then no, we got up day 2, and day 2 we still weren't supposed to meet up with the Turtlebox guys. Day 2 we were supposed to just ease our way up the coast, fish a bunch that day, and we got started that morning.
Yeah, day 2 we were meeting up.
Was
This
it day
took y'all
2?
4 days to get started. Y'all started on a Saturday. I was like, what do you mean y'all already down there? We're meeting up.
Yeah,
Are you,
I
like,
guess that's fair.
Did we start a day
on
early?
yeah,
Friday.
y'all
We started on
packed for like
Friday.
3 days. I mean, I get it. When I didn't have kids, I would do the same thing. But no, we met y'all on day 2. And we were supposed to meet you in Port Mansfield. And, we call you and say, hey, by the way, it's too blown out. We'll meet you somewhere in the intercoastal.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, well, yeah, no problem. We'll find you. And so we launch y'all's day 2, and anyway, it's blowing 25 is what it says on the app. We get out there, and I bet it's blowing 30. I mean, it is.
Yeah.
Dude, I was sweating.
Oh,
I
dude.
was sweating for you.
It was
guys.
it was day 3.
No.
we had camped 2 nights before.
No, one night. Y'all
No,
were camped one night.
we'd only camped one night.
One
so
night.
we woke up after the first night. Yeah, we had woke up after the first night, and we were supposed to camp south of Mansfield, but we started fishing, and we went into the cooler, and we went, guys, we're out of water.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
thought you were going to say beer.
No.
Yeah, water is kind of like life or
Like,
death. Yeah, you need water.
So we had to run up to Mansfield just to get water, and that's when I was like, the conditions on the Laguna were like, I cannot. We have to get out of the Laguna. And that's when we called you guys and we're like, look, we're running north. We got to get this boat somewhere safe for the night. This is where we'll kind of be. If you guys don't feel comfortable running the Laguna, we'll just meet you. We'll find you somewhere along the coast.
Yeah.
It's a small coast. So
Yeah, well,
we'd
you
find
didn't
it.
tell me you didn't have signal was the problem.
Yeah,
So,
we did not have cell service. Well,
Yeah.
we can't. Well, because remember, we can't. Cole caught his fish, and
That
then
was the first night.
we ran exactly. Then we ran past Mansfield.
Yeah.
Got into the cut. I caught my fish. That was still just us.
Yeah.
and we camped that night.
Right.
And so that's what I was saying.
Oh, day 3
It
is
was
when
day
we
3.
met you
It was
guys.
originally going to be day 2, but it was day 3 for us because we started a day early. So we were already past the meetup point and without cell signal.
And just we're just in the middle of the bay system. I hope they find us. It was
Yeah.
kind of a prayer. I mean, we had made it up into
I
the
was-
land cut, but
I was praying. Anyway, so we get in the bay, and Reagan and I have done a lot of adventures. He's kind of my adventure buddy, and we've got lots of them. We pulled out of that immediately into the bay, and we looked at each other, and we didn't even have to say anything. We were both like, oh shit, here we go. We're in another one.
Yeah, it was awesome. I guess in that bay, the water is shallow enough and the bay is wide enough that the waves get really close together. and we took a couple of waves over the bow that, they soaked us, but they weren't enough volume of water to sink us. But we were bailing. You were bailing out of the back, weren't you, son? You were bailing.
I stayed in the boat. I didn't jump out of the boat.
No, but you were bailing.
He had a trucker hat. Yeah, not bailing out. No, we don't bail out. Let's let everybody know we don't bail out. But we were bailing water out of the boat that first day.
In the boat. About 15 minutes in, I mean, it was getting.
It was on. Yeah, we were loving it.
Peter doesn't have his cell phone, so we're like.
I haven't fished that far south, and I know up further north, like I have a cell phone signal, so I didn't even think about it. I was like, oh, I'll probably have a signal there. And then like as soon as we get into the land cut, I'm like, oh, well, this will be interesting. I was like, maybe they have they probably don't have a VHF radio.
Yeah, so we're just starting off. We're taking water in. And can't get a hold of Peter. Like, yeah, we'll just find each other. We're in the middle of nowhere. There's nowhere we're going to find each other. So we're just like, hey, worst case scenario, it'll just be me and Reagan. We'll make it back to Houston. We had
gear in that boat to make it to Florida. Yeah. So we were good to go.
We had enough gear, not enough food. We basically made the decision that usually we stock up on food like crazy. This one was like, hey, we either catch fish or die. So we're like, I mean, we're not going to die out of no food in 4 days, but we were basically like, we're catching fish. That's what we're going to eat. And
it was a great, I mean, it was great. In theory, it was a fantastic idea.
It was a great idea.
Yeah.
Peter, Michael, and Cole had maybe 36 bags of Mountain House ready for, several days of being lost and having no fish.
We didn't have enough Pop-Tarts, though.
That's true. Will and I brought, 2 links of sausage and some crackers, and that was all we needed.
Well, and fajitas for night one.
We did have fajitas. Yeah.
One night of dining like kings, and then y'all's expectation was probably that we were going to have fresh fish.
My expectation was we were fishing from Mexico to Houston. Like, we're gonna catch some fish, like at least one a day.
You think when you get the fish in hand, that once it's in hand, there's no way it gets away, right?
Yeah, if you get the fish in the boat,
there's no way. Like,
it's hard to get it back out of the boat.
Should we just dig into this now? Like,
I mean, might as well.
I want to hear.
That's like day 4.
Yeah, it's like
we can't skip to day 4. So we start so basically, like I don't have a cell phone signal, so we just start polling the intercoastal. And we were seeing a bunch of black drum. We got stared down. We got stared down by a bull who I thought was going to try to fight us, but he got scared off.
On an unnamed ranch.
that's a bull cow, not a bull red.
Yeah, bull cow.
Viewers. Yeah.
And you guys showed up. You were fine.
We found you.
Yeah, I the whole time though I was sitting there like I know what I can handle with my skiff and my experience on the water, and I'm like having not met you guys ever and not knowing what your background is, I'm like, this might be a little more than these guys signed up for. So like as soon as I saw that skiff run up the land cut, I was just like, oh, thank goodness.
It was genuine relief.
I didn't kill anybody.
Genuine relief. Like at that point we weren't expecting to see y'all because it was later in the day and there you were.
We've been in hairier spots, but not that many. Not that many.
Grizzly bears.
That's right.
No, so we start. We all get together and we start running up to where we're gonna camp for night 2, and we get camp set up, and it's still a good bit of daylight, and so we set off to go do some fishing.
Well, do you want to talk at all about that? We met up with high fives. You know, here's the Turtlebox guys that you guys have been talking about that I hadn't met yet, and then we were gonna go fish that grass flat.
Oh yeah, so we were gonna go fish. We were gonna go fish one of my a spot that I really like, and this I could probably rename this trip the trip of failed spots that always work for me. So we pull up to like this flat that I absolutely love, and it's got 4 inches of water on it, no grass, and as far as I can see, like there's birds with like their kneecaps out of the water, and I'm like, all right, well, so this was my plan. And didn't really think about having a plan B because this plan normally works this time of year.
Yeah.
And so we
well, I'd never been there obviously, so I wasn't sure, but the look on your face was like, because I didn't know any different, but when you saw it, I mean, I could tell you were super upset.
Yeah, so that flat normally is like, and I'm so bad at judging land area, I would say like it's normally like 100, 200 acres of just pure, untouched, beautiful turtle grass as far as you can see. I mean, it's normally like a 3-4 mile pole across it, and you commit to it and you go across it. And I guess the water just had dropped out so far during the winter that it had burned all the grass off the flat. And I haven't had a chance to go down there to see if it's recovering at all. But, it's just one of those moments where, we sit here and we talk about conservation and about like taking care of the environment from a human aspect. And there's so many factors, environmental, just the way nature is basically that, we can't control. And I know this is one of those moments where like, to me, it was like, this is why as a group of people, like we have to try to do more because we can't control hurricanes, we can't control the tide dropping out, we can't control some of these factors that play into some of this destruction that does happen, and it's just part of the natural process.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was like I was so excited to share that with you guys, and I still don't like talking about it.
Well, because that was one of your circled spots on the whole trip that was going to be fished.
So we, so obviously that flat didn't work out for us, and I was basically like just heartbroken, like let's just go find camp. So we did, and we set up camp, still have some daylight left, kind of just break up, go 2 separate ways, and see if we can catch a fish for dinner. And Cotter and I went for a nice walk. We found a bunch of black drum, and then Cole, you and Reagan went a different direction.
Yeah, so we all kind of. Me, Reagan, and Will were all kind of on a separate flat from Michael and Pete, and I kind of started getting a little deep. I was about waist deep, and I had my camera strapped to my back, so I had 12 inches of space between me and the water level, and I had turned around and I had the sun in my back, so I was able to catch the redfish as they're catching the sun and glaring, and that was really the only way you could spot anything because it was 25-mile-an-hour winds, and I was in waist deep water, and see just a big red flash like 10 yards away from me. And so I just kind of it's kind of a blind cast into that general area, and there's little tufts of seagrass, and just out of that seagrass just big old jaws came up and destroyed a shrimp fly. And I was like, oh, that's a solid fish. Like, dang. And it took off running. And in the reel, I had a knot in the backing where how it ties around the arbor, and like you hit a spot and it hit that back wall and it goes, and the rod bent. And I was like, oh, that's it. But it stopped the fish. It stopped the fish, luckily. But I was like, I can't let him go any further. And so at that point, I'm like, almost camera level, and I was like, I can't chase him out to deeper water. I'm gonna have to fight my battle right here.
The camera's around you.
Right, and I'm fighting the fish, and the camera's on my back, and I can't swing it around without dropping the rod. And so I'm like, got to fight my battle over here on this hill, and was able to get him back into hand. And the whole time I'm yelling at Will and Reagan, and they're like 150 yards away. And I'm like, there's no way they can't hear me. I'm like, because we're trying to film all this, and I'm like, I got a giant. And they're like doing their own thing, backs turned. And I just remember I landed the fish, and I've caught quite a few redfish and know what a 30+ inch fish looks like, and is easily my best Texas red. It was full on bull red, probably 30 to 31 inches, somewhere in there. And I just remember I had it in my hands in the water, and I had the head cradled and the tail over here, and I'm like, well, I'm just gonna have to say goodbye to this fish. And so I take the fly out because I'm stuck in the mud. I can't get my camera. I just let the fish go, and then after I let the fish go, I'm like, I yell over at Will and Reagan. I'm like, Will, Reagan, and then they turn around. They turned around immediately. Like whipped around. They're like, what did we miss? And I'm like, oh my gosh, like seriously, of all times. But it was just a really cool. It was probably my favorite moment of the trip. Just kind of have that moment to yourself because it just happened in such crazy fashion. It's cool.
Yeah.
Well, not long after that experience, I got to fish with Cole, just he and I, and got my first experience with him. So I was making some casts, and he had his camera out, and he was slowly seeing how bad a fisherman I was.
Come on now.
And I was trying to hide it, trying to look good and trying to look cool, and it was slowly, fading fast, I guess. So we corner a red that Cole sees that I don't. He sees it. He's like, throw it over there. So I'm trying to get this thing.
We legit had it cornered. Like, it was back out of the water, up on the shore, and we had it. Reagan was on one side, I was on the other, and had it like cornered up on the beach. It was cool.
We had him pushed into shallow water, so he was not eating what I was throwing, and Cole was trying to capture this whole experience on camera. So Cole gets frustrated, and I'm frustrated too. He puts the camera down and throws a fly right on him in a couple of casts, and the fish eats, and hands me the pole to land this fish, and then he picks up the camera and films the whole thing. This is the only fish that I've landed the whole trip.
It's called teamwork.
Movie magic.
Point being is that Cole seemed to be a one-man army with the camera and with the rod. He was truly impressive, and really, I had a blast like right off the bat with him, fishing with him.
Well, honestly, it was teamwork because I was like, the sun was setting, and I was like, we need this shot. Like, this is.
That was the sunset. That was the best sunset of the trip.
There's no way I can't be behind the camera, and honestly, that's what it came down to this whole trip. This whole trip, we're trying to lift each other up because, I have a bad day one day, and you guys have to have good days on my bad days. And so the whole trip, you're trying to lift each other up and honestly just make this whole thing work. Because it's not like we're fishing an evening. We're there for this entire trip and trying to have a great time, and that's kind of what it takes sometimes.
Yeah, so we get back together, talk about everything that's going on. Then we get ready to cook dinner that first night, and we're like, hey, we got some Mountain House, and Will's like, oh yeah, we got fajitas, and we're gonna cook up a redfish. And we're just like, wait, what?
Yeah, Will said, I don't eat bad food.
I mean, if you're gonna camp, that's like, it's just, I don't know. You can't miss out on food. Like, that's the best cooking you can do, the best food. And whatever you're cooking, it tastes 10 times better when you're camping because you're already hungry. And you guys are like, so anyway.
Yeah, and then
we had a hard time getting a fire. 'Cause remember that wind? We had to we brought this like really cheap, basically just a grate, and we propped it up, but the wind was so stout we had to like carve out of the sand dune, and so we could protect from the wind, and we got a fire going and cooked some redfish and some fajitas, and man, it was good. Tell me about the redfish. I can't remember. Did we cook the fajitas first or the redfish first?
Well, we did two things that night. You want to talk?
We did them both. I think we did the fajitas first, and because we did that redfish on the half shell.
Redfish on the half shell. Made redfish tacos. Yeah.
And then
that's good.
In the middle of all that, we had an uninvited guest that scared Reagan 10 feet into the air.
I'm blanking. What?
The little baby nutria that came into camp.
Rat.
Oh my gosh!
Try to crawl up your pant leg
today. Yeah, luckily that did not haunt my nightmares after the trip. This is the first time I'm remembering that. Oh my gosh! Yeah, that little dude was brave.
Dude, he came right up to us.
Dude, yeah, great memory. I'm gonna have the nightmare tonight.
No, so we.
Well, then we did the redfish ceviche.
Oh yeah.
Oh
yeah,
dude, that was phenomenal.
For some reason, we decided to do all of the good food on one night.
Yeah. Well, because
that's because we thought we were gonna catch
because
so many fish.
we had someone let one of our dinners go. Yeah, that's day 4. We're getting there.
Day 4. We'll get there.
I
mean, literally, I'm thinking I'm with all these professional guys. These guys fly fish for a living. I mean, they wake up fly fishing. They go to sleep fly fishing. We're gonna have so many fish. I was like, hey guys, look, I'm all about conservation. I just want one fish. Just let me keep one. Don't get mad at me if I keep one fish. We're gonna eat it. Yeah. They're like, yeah, we'll let you keep one. Anyway, yeah, it was a little bit tougher than I thought.
Now.
But I will say that night was one of the most epic nights.
Yeah.
I mean, the sun setting, if y'all go watch the film, it's out of control. And you did such a good job capturing it with when Reagan was reeling in that fish. It was so pretty.
That was a cool night.
I remember like the three of us, like maybe us three were walking back, and y'all two behind us with that sun setting, and it was out of a movie. I felt like Brad Pitt.
You look like Brad Pitt.
Yeah. better.
Tell me that,
I mean,
actually.
better hairdo for sure.
So we get going. I don't know what day it is anymore, and this is actually how.
That's how the whole trip felt. After the first night, it was just a blend of
I don't know what
time.
Yeah, it really was. So we start making our way up the land cut, or no, I guess we're out of the land cut. We start making our way towards, I guess, Corpus. Grab some burgers.
Oh yeah,
those were so good.
Yeah, we really did cram all the good food into 24 hours.
Yeah, tell anybody about that. It's in the movie.
Yeah, it's in the movie.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. You guys stayed in the boat. Good.
Yeah, I mean you can't do the Texas coast without a good burger.
We were only gonna eat redfish. I had a redfish burger.
I'm glad that we're getting the expectations out now after the trip.
That's true.
Because that's important.
He was totally fine with the cheeseburger. Yeah, it's fine.
It was unbelievable.
Dude, that whole trip gave me a new appreciation for ice cream sandwiches.
Oh man,
Yes.
I started looking forward to that.
Also, I'm going to pause right now and say every marina needs to stock Doritos Dynamitos.
Doritos Dynamite. There was.
Please. That's a problem.
The unofficial title of this film is The Hunt for Doritos Dynamitos.
We almost did a trailer, and that was what we were going to call it and send it to you.
That would have been the best.
I don't know. You guys may not have gotten to experience
No, we couldn't find them after we met up with these guys.
Yeah, so we found them at Port Mansfield before we met up with y'all.
That was it.
And then Peter and I ate the whole bag within like 20 minutes. So
Sorry.
so it wasn't there when y'all arrived.
Not sorry.
And then we looked at every marina that we fueled up at from Mansfield, and we did not find another bag until Sabine.
Right.
Like it was...
Yeah, so if you're
And
on
how many marinas did we stop at?
more than one.
Yeah, more than
Just
four,
go with more.
4 or 5. Either way, I'm sorry. One day you'll get to experience that
Can't wait.
flavorful blast.
They sound great,
They are.
especially to starving fishermen. I'm glad y'all saved some.
So I want to go back to the burger. It was probably one of the best burgers I've had, and it opened my eyes to a new thing: drive-through burgers on a boat.
It'd be a thing.
I mean, have you ever?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you've done that. You live on a boat, but this was like a new thing for me. You know, we're cruising through a new spot, and we ordered burgers, and we got them on our boat. Like we docked on our boat, ordered burgers.
Walked inside and picked them up.
Have y'all ever done that? I mean, I don't know. I've never done that.
That was a
That was
first.
awesome.
Yeah.
great.
Service with a smile.
I was
Yeah.
smiling.
Service with smiles on both sides.
Yeah, the smiles were everywhere. Everybody was smiling. I think because we pulled up in a boat and they're like, "Oh wow, these guys are doing it." And we've got, stuff everywhere, gear everywhere. These guys haven't changed shirts in 4 days. Like, we look hungry. So they're smiling, like probably half laughing at us is why they're smiling. We were smiling because that was really, really good.
Yeah.
Because we didn't bring any food.
So the point is, everyone was smiling for different reasons.
Correct.
Yeah.
Cheeseburgers make the world go round.
That's right.
Yeah.
Any time of night.
Oh, and we learned a new trick. This is actually some a little knowledge dump we can dump on the skiff guys that are listening. If you fill up your boat,
Oh yeah.
you want to sit on the side of your
The opposite
side of your gas
Gas fill.
your gas fill. So we had an interesting thing. Peter and I are running the exact same boat, and we had very different levels of gas when we pulled up at this marina. And he's like, "Oh, what the heck? What's going on? Cole is dragging us down. We're gonna stick him on your boat. Whatever." But it was you were legitimately like, "What's going on? How are you running your engine?" And I was like, so I kind of felt good. I was like, "Yeah, I'm running real efficient. I know what I'm doing." And it was because we were sitting on opposite sides of the boat when you're filling up. So you think you're full, you click it, but if you're sitting on the side of your gas cap, you're actually your tank is
you got an air bubble on the other side.
You got a
Yeah,
big air bubble. So I was like, learned something new on that one.
Yeah. So we eat some cheeseburgers, make our way up, fill up one more time, get back into the marsh, and went to another place that normally does really well for me, and it just
Yeah, it was a comedy of tackle malfunctions.
Oh, you
on
know
that
what
day.
happened that night too?
No.
That was the night of.
Well, we met Howard. We met Howard on that day,
we met
too.
Howard, but before we met Howard, that was the manta ray flat.
Oh yeah, that
That was yeah.
Who found Howard? Was that a Reagan find?
I don't know.
He was sitting there
I think
like
Howard found us.
Yeah, basically we pulled up to set up
He
camp,
swam up, right?
and I'm like, oh, look at that! There's Howard.
Howard is our duck decoy that we found along the way.
Which, by the way, if we're going to talk about finding camps, if you're curious about this process, it's best if there's daylight.
Yeah, I was
That is true.
sweating that one too. I was like, everybody, we were fishing and we're like, let's get some night footage of fishing. I'm like, all right, well, let's at least find camp so that we don't have to trudge through the swamp for 30 feet to get to a good place to set up a tent. Oh, we'll be fine. We'll be fine. We can do it. I'm like, this is a bad idea. This isn't going to end well. How did it go, Cole?
Well, Cole, I think
I felt pretty good about that campsite.
About that night is the race.
I mean, those
Oh.
40 yards of sand was great. So, worked out nicely for me. But anyways, back to your point on the manta rays. Yeah, being up on the polling platform, seeing I was on the polling platform. And I was like, and it's been slow up to this point, and I'm just seeing tails everywhere.
Yeah. Well, I think it's also
Let's
important.
put some air quotes around those tails.
Yeah. Well, let's put some. Are they this far apart?
Yeah. So I'm seeing tails. I'm like, at this point, I'm getting a little PO'd. I'm like, Pete, just cast at him.
He's just leaving the fly.
Just cast at him. And he's being completely quiet up there. And then he finally turns around, and in his sarcastic way, he goes, are they this far apart?
Yeah, he's got his fingers.
I'm like, well, yeah, they're potted up. They're potted up, clearly. And he goes, dude, they're manta rays. And I'm
They're
like,
cow nose rays.
And then-
Cow nose rays.
and then I start seeing the rays like shoot underneath the boat, and I'm like, yeah, I feel pretty dumb now. It was really exciting though from up
No,
top.
I know you were very excited.
Very.
Well, that's all. I mean, that's also after however many days that was of trying, like working
Just-
hard to catch fish.
Oh yeah.
You start to imagine. It's like when you've been deer hunting, several days in a row, and all the bushes start turning into deers.
Yeah.
Whatever that phenomenon is called. I'm sure there's a name for it. Everything you see becomes a redfish.
Yeah.
It's true. So
There-
I don't blame you.
There were a lot of rays. I remember one ray right off our port side, like 2 feet away in the water, but it looked red. I thought it was a redfish, and I
wasn't
reached down.
alone.
I reached down to grab the net, and I was gonna jump him, like jump in the water and catch him with a net just on the jump, because my fly rod wasn't working. So I got all the way to the edge of the boat and then saw, that would not go well if I jumped this ray with a net. Glad I didn't do it.
I heard that they can.
There
be
were
good
a lot of
eating,
rays
though.
out there.
I've heard they can be good eating though. So maybe we should have.
Maybe.
If a scallop is perfectly round at a restaurant,
It's
Stingray.
stingray. I've heard that too.
yeah,
Seriously.
yeah.
Whoa.
You want to kind of have some unevenness in your scallop.
Wow.
Man, nicely done.
What else? Well, we're on the topic of food.
I think anytime
We did
food
not cook
comes
a
up, it's just
stingray
well.
on this trip.
Yeah, we didn't cook. We didn't even keep a stingray. We didn't try to
We-
get
yeah.
a stingray. Yeah, just
We never got one in the slot.
asterisk disclaimer.
We never got a slot stingray. We saw a lot,
That's what we were really going after.
and no one got stung by a stingray, so that's a positive.
Apparently Reagan was trying to ride one though, so
Do you guys want to? You guys have 2 minutes to talk about the race.
I
'Cause
think we
know
should just
you'll-
leave it.
You'll make a whole podcast about it. If
I think we should just leave it up in the air and make people watch.
Well, y'all didn't know this, but the race is not over.
I like it. Continue.
You better like it, because you're going to be racing tonight to prove who, for once and for all, is the fastest between you and Cole. Cotter or Cole?
Do you have any tennis shoes I can borrow?
Well, I noticed I looked at this when y'all showed up. This might have to be a barefoot race.
That's fine.
Are you starting to stretch
So-
in the middle of a podcast?
I wasn't
Sit
going
down.
to tell y'all.
We've got hours.
I wasn't going to tell y'all
We've got
before.
hours.
I was just going to kind of surprise y'all, but I do want y'all to be mentally in this. So this is a fair warning. This
Now
is
they're
going
gonna-
down. and it's happening
Here's
tonight.
what I'm gonna say.
This will be settled once and for all tonight.
Do we have a ribbon?
Hard work beats talent.
I'm sure
right?
we can find something.
When talent doesn't work hard.
Oh my goodness! All right, so we get done with our nightly shenanigans, and we start fishing the next day. And like I'm super like that day, I was probably the most excited because we were like my neck of the woods. I've got spots all over this place. Like this is the day. This is like these spots are good for me. But you guys caught a fish.
2. Hooked into 2.
Did I? I mean,
we hooked into one.
Oh, that fish.
Will did catch a fish. That whole day, it was me poling and Will fishing, basically. And I was being jackknifed into his backswing, like constantly, just annoying the crap out of him. And for one gleaming moment in the sun, I had the boat on the right side of his backswing, and he laid one right on a redfish, took it, fought him. It was like epic catch, landed the fish, and then Cole and Cotter wanted to take some photos of the fish.
Naturally. I mean, yeah.
I mean that's we're filming, so it makes sense.
Who knew that redfish could play dead?
That's true. And at the time, you guys thought it was conspiracy because we did have a little bit of a competition going on between the 2 boats. And so you guys thought maybe we were taking the fish and...
We're just extreme. We're extreme conservationists.
Extreme conservationists. So that fish that they caught, that they were trying to make ceviche out of, still swims.
We needed more ceviche.
Because we're conservationists.
imagine you just go to the grocery store, the best grocery store you can think of, and you go see the butcher, and you're like, I want the best filet you've got. Give me the best thing you've got. He hands it to you, and as soon as he hands it to you, some guy walks up and is like, hey, can I look at your steak real quick? And then he takes off sprinting and runs out of the grocery store with your dinner. And you have no wallet, so you can't. You took your wallet too, so you can't buy another one. And you're like, yeah, sure, you can look at my steak, and then it's gone, and that's the last time you ever see that steak. So, Cole, I mean, you want to take over?
Okay, so somehow this has gotten pinned on me. I was on camera.
You're
he
the
was
guy
holding the
that
fish.
wanted to look at the steak.
He was holding the steak.
You were the guy that claimed that once the steak is caught, it's docile.
That is true. I told him there's no way it gets out of your hands. It's a redfish. They're happy because generally redfish are pretty happy. They're not like trout. Like they'll sit there and let you take a photo of them. But
you keep them around the water long enough, they're gonna get a second burst of energy.
Well, we know that now.
I mean, you got to think. Reagan and I have already eaten through all of our little Slim Jims, and I mean, we're running on salt water and like grassweed out of the marsh back here. I mean,
we did offer you a mountain house in return for your lost fish.
It's true, yeah. But like I said, it's all about the good food on the. Yeah, we can't digress.
It's like a McDonald's chicken nugget for a steak.
So
what did we eat that night? I don't even remember.
We did?
Yeah.
We just starved.
No, we put sausage together because we made it to POC.
We did.
We did boudin, sausage, and then a couple mountain houses.
Oh man,
it was solid, but I could feel a little bit of bitterness that night.
So we before we got up to camp that night, in this we got across San Antonio Bay, the bigger water, and we get up to San Antonio, and there's two ways we can go about it. And one, we can go over to the barrier island and we can run behind it, or two, we can just drive straight across it. And the wind's been blowing because it's May, and that's what it does in May. Plus it's Texas, and that's just what it does. And so I pull the guys together, and I'm kind of like, look, guys, this is about to suck. We can either cross this twice and have a decent run in the middle, or we can just...
Which was only the fourth or fifth time that we got this talk from Peter about what to expect.
We're about to get wet.
Yeah. But like after I'd seen you guys make it through the Lower Lagoon, I was like, I know that they can handle it. And it was basically like, just keep the boat moving forward and don't fall behind, because the conditions were such that like we're not coming back. Like,
yeah, turning around.
We ain't coming back
fun.
for you.
Yeah.
Fall behind, left behind.
If you fall behind, you're getting left behind.
Every boat for themselves.
But so we make it across. Luckily, there was a few barges we could hide across on the way on the crossing, and we get across. And that's, I think, when I introduced you guys to one of my favorite parts of the trip, which was we're going swimming. Like my knuckles, like my hand is cramped because I'm running a tiller. I decided, let's make this harder, and I'll run a tiller for the whole thing. So my hand is like cramped, and I need to relax. And we're going swimming, and so we
initiated a
swim call. And while we're having swim call, the United States Coast Guard shows up, and they're like, "What are you guys doing?" And we're like, "Oh, we explained the whole trip and what we're doing." They're like,
we saw floundering in the water.
Yeah.
And heard shouts and
tried to convince them to let us jump off their boat, but they weren't having that one.
No,
they thought about it though.
They paused.
They all looked at each other like, "Who's in charge of this decision?"
I believe his response was, "I haven't even got to do that yet, though."
No, so we get fueled up, we get set up at camp for that night, and that honestly was, that camp in Port O'Connor was one of my favorite camps because we didn't have to trudge through water, and we had a little party that night. We had all the turtle boxes blasting, just
Throwing the football.
Yeah, that was a fun night.
That was another good sunset.
It
was a good sunset, and that was near past Bayou.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was cool because we had been talking about the history of kind of some of the stuff that went down there between, pirate Lafitte dude, and then some of the Civil War stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a cool area. I mean, it was a cool area.
Sure.
For
Still
those
is.
history buffs or history nerds. It's a cool area.
The drone shots of that campsite were awesome.
Yeah.
Those did turn out pretty cool.
They were cool.
It looked like another world.
Really cool.
So the next day we get up, and now so we're kind of the northern extent of where like I'm really comfortable and I really know, and it's kind of that scene in Lord of the Rings where like if I take one more step, it's the furthest I've ever been from home, and so I'm kind of
I like that.
So I'm like, all right, guys, like I had basically programmed the trip to where the last 2 or 3 days we were gonna have long runs. Because I didn't know the fishing as well, and all the fishing that I knew let me down. So we start running, and we get into East Matagorda Bay. No, this West Matagorda Bay, and it's so the whole scene that unraveled. Like I'm running the skiff, and I see like a 7 or 8 foot shark on the flat, and I'm like, "Go get your camera!" And I look up, and you guys are like aren't even paying attention. I'm like, "Dude, there's a shark! Like, look at this!" And like, all you guys are like, "Oh, you saw the boat, and you're stopping to help." I'm like, "What? No, we're not stopping to help anybody."
We've got places to be.
Dude, we got places to go. There's a shark that's gonna be cool for footage. But we come across these two gentlemen in like a 24-foot bay boat that had managed to find a sandbar with their boat, and
I mean, they got familiar with that sandbar too.
Oh,
Quick.
if we hadn't shown up, they weren't getting off that thing.
Oh, no chance.
Yeah, they had a long day ahead of
Yeah,
them.
Yeah.
Yep.
and so
And potentially still had a long day. I mean, they
may have hit a whole other bar after we rescued
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, so we spent a couple hours getting them on, which was crazy to me because like they're hard aground. It's taking all we can do to push them, and at the same time, the two skiffs keep floating away from us, like sitting like 2 feet away in the same water. But no, like I thought that was really good of us, and it's something like
Pat on the back.
yeah. It's one of those like if you're on the water and you see somebody in distress, like you should 100%. Because I would always hope that somebody would help me out if I found myself in the same situation.
Definitely one of the cooler moments of the trip. See someone else in trouble and pull over and help them. It was fun and honestly didn't take that long.
No.
Well, just a half hour or something. We had a half hour
the first,
left and right.
The first bit took a half hour, but then the motor.
Oh
was
yeah, we
stuck
couldn't get
up.
the motor down.
Oh yeah, that was
we're-
another half hour.
We're pulling out, and they flag us down again. So we freed their boat, and we're like starting to pull out, and we see them like, hey, come on back. Like, we got one more thing.
Here's a soggy $5 bill, and we're like, hey,
keep that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
No, so hopefully those guys made it home all right.
Yeah. Honestly.
New friends, for sure.
It does. I mean, it does happen.
But that kind of shot our plans down for East Matagorda because we had
Right.
plans to.
We were gonna fish a little bit in East Matagorda,
Yeah.
and
We probably would have caught 10 to 15.
100%.
dude, we would have caught so many.
That's where
fish.
they all were.
That's where
all
they were. I mean,
Yep.
clearly, and but that's kind of the dichotomy there is help people or catch fish.
This trip
And
wasn't even about catching fish, anyways.
That's not what it was about
Yeah.
at all.
Will.
Yeah, now that Will's not
Now that Will's not here, I don't listen to that guy.
But yeah, so helping those guys out, it cut into our fishing time because we have a bunch of miles to cover
Yeah.
to get to where we need to be. So it takes out that time that you're hoping to go fish another section of this coast, but it ends up being probably one of the more memorable parts of the trip, regardless.
Yeah,
Oh,
for
yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
That was you guys left us that day.
Yeah, that was our last afternoon helping
Yeah.
those guys, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And we
it
had
was.
to, from Matagorda, we had to beeline it to San Luis. My wife and kids and Will's wife and kids were like a 5 o'clock arrival in San Luis, so we didn't have much time.
Yeah.
Except when
Which
we
was
met
sad.
our friend Carter
Carter, yeah.
to fish.
Yeah.
A little bit more.
A little bit more, yeah.
Yeah.
So one of our buddies, Carter Morby, met us with ice, beer, and a couple fishing spots, and he ended up spending the night with us one night. That was another awesome night. Wish you guys could have been there.
Yeah.
And that was like for me, that was like the first time during that trip that it like really hit me. And if you watch the film, you'll see I talk about it, but it kind of hit like oh. We're not doing this for the rest of our lives, like whenever you're on a fun trip, like you don't want it to end, and it kind of hit like, oh man, this is it.
I think the funniest part of that night is Cotter and I are going to sleep, and we just hear Carter and Pete go, "Let's go gig a flounder." And they have no lights, no gig. And we just hear them laughing down the beach.
I think they had one headlamp because
No, we had a spotlight.
or maybe
not-
maybe it was a spotlight.
We know what we're doing.
Yeah.
We can have a gig.
Because we hear that, and Cole and I are talking about something else, and then like it's one of those where you're sitting there and you're looking up at the stars, and about 5 minutes goes by, and then Cole or I look at each other and we're like, did they say they're going flounder gigging? And then we both sat up and looked like out through the mesh, and we just see the spotlight doing, like at an airport where the spotlight's going in around. We see that, 400 yards down the coast. And we're like, well, I hope they come back tonight because they're.
What we're talking about is like, do we have a flounder gig?
No, yeah, we did not.
We didn't.
But they were going to piece something together.
We would figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways,
And then, so we woke up the next morning and we had something that we hadn't dealt with that entire trip happened that morning. And that was mosquitoes.
oh yeah.
And so, like, I had slept with my arm, like, I'm in a tent, full mesh, and I had slept with my arm up against the sidewall of my tent. And that was enough to where I woke up and my arm is just covered in mosquito bite. Like, they had gone through the tent and just wrecked. And they'd wrecked my arm. And I think we basically, like, woke up, knew what the mosquito situation was. I think we were off that beach in about 10 seconds flat.
Oh yeah.
Well, because we had been dealing with wind all the way up to
Right.
that point.
Yeah.
Dealing with wind. But what we hadn't realized was, it's May and we're not dealing with mosquitoes.
Right.
And so we had just kind of been like, oh, this is, this
We'll be
is
fine.
nice. At nighttime, it was great. And then that night, the wind shut off and the mosquitoes showed up.
Yeah.
By the hundreds.
Just everywhere.
And I think there's a quick shot in the film too that kind of showed like they were waiting for
It
you
was
outside.
so
the tent.
bad.
Like, come on, we know you have to come.
I could be totally wrong on this, so I apologize to the scientists out there. But I think that they're drawn to the exhaled, not oxygen, but the carbon dioxide or whatever whatever it is that the human body turns oxygen into on the exhale.
It's carbon dioxide.
Carbon dioxide. That's what the mosquitoes are drawn to, and so they were all. All the mosquitoes in that area were on our tents.
Yeah.
So we have our last big bay crossing, which is the Houston Ship Channel, and I had never been through there, and I knew it was big open water, so I had talked to Cotter, and I had talked to Reagan and Will about it, and I had talked to Brian Little about it, and had a general idea of like how to get across it. But I was still like, super nervous about going across this big water. Never been there. Don't know what I'm getting myself into.
Big ships.
Right.
Running through there. Yeah.
And we just get blessed with, and so like as we've left camp and we're making our way up the backside of Galveston, like it's blowing. It starts blowing again, and I'm just like, this is gonna be another big crossing. That's like, and I think you guys got to talk again. And we start getting up towards the Houston Ship Channel, and the wind dies.
It's like 10 minutes of dead.
Glasses over, and just becomes this like beautiful, calm, sunny, like awesome. It was perfect. It was like I couldn't have asked for a better way to cross the Houston Ship Channel.
Yeah, it was a blessing.
Yeah.
Just laid out.
Yeah.
That was the easiest. I mean, that was probably the easiest crossing that we had on the whole trip.
And so we get across, and I think we ended up having to run like 110 miles that last day. And I mean, it's pretty much all like
we had
land
been slow
cut.
walking it.
Yeah.
Because we didn't want the trip to end. I don't even know if we realized subconsciously we were slow walking it as much as we were, but we got to the last day and we looked at the map.
Yeah, we had planned on fishing a little bit the last day, and I like look at the map and I'm like, guys, we're running all day today.
We didn't want the Turtlebox guys to leave, so we were trying
to like capture them so they never could get off the water.
Yeah. We didn't realize we didn't know how cool they were going to be.
Yeah.
And then we hung out with them, and we're like, man, we might should change up this whole program. They're following us. I mean, we could have driven.
Yeah, we could have just taken them out into the Atlantic or the Gulf of Mexico.
Well, we appreciate that compliment. That this trip was like epically awesome for Will and I. We've done a lot of things together. He and I have been in a lot of places and a lot of tight spots, and been all over the world together. And this was way up there, if not tops, as far as just
that's awesome.
Taking on the unknown, and right in our own backyard. Kind of thing. It was super, super cool for us to do this trip with you guys.
Yeah.
We loved it.
Y'all guys made the trip. You really did.
My kids have, seen the movie, and they think we have crocodile blood.
Dude,
like, they are loving it.
I told my wife about that, and she started asking, like, well, how do you think, like, what, how does this theory work out? And I was like, Lindsay, like, they're gonna be at the premiere. Like, I'll introduce you to them, and you can have a sit down scientific discussion with Reagan's kids about how we have crocodile blood. I don't know. I just heard the theory. Like, I don't know any of the background. I don't know any of the science that supports this theory. Like, you're gonna have to ask these kids.
There you go.
But no, we pushed hard that last day. We made it into Sabine Pass, made it to Louisiana. Nobody died. We cross the border and we make it. We hoot and holler and make it, and then we like run back to the boat ramp where we're supposed to meet my wife at, and we realize like there's a really low bridge that we can't get the skiff under, and so we're like struggling, like trying to come up with
one of the things that you can't see on Google Maps or on Onyx is the bridge,
like how high the bridge is. Yeah. So we finally find a boat ramp.
Well, hold up. We got boarded by the Coast Guard again.
Yeah, we got pulled over by the Coast Guard.
We pulled over, found another boat ramp. So I mean, 5 minutes from the end.
Yeah.
End of the trip.
We're about to pull the skiff out of the water. Coast Guard.
Right there. Right there. And when we told them, because we looked really rough.
Probably looked like,
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we looked probably kind of sketchy too. And we told them, we're like, yeah, we're coming from Mexico and we're in Louisiana, and they're like,
sure.
Yeah. And they were like, no. We're like, no, seriously, like this is day 7.
And this was also like one of those times when when you get pulled over and then you can't find anything. Like, you check, where your driver's license is, where your proof of insurance is. And then as soon as the cop pulls you over, like somehow it's disappeared from existence in your car. And you're like, I swear it was right here. So he's like asking me for all this stuff that I keep in the boat. I check that it's on the boat. I know it's on the boat. And I can't find anything.
Classic.
Yeah.
Cotter and I are like stalling. We're having like a 15-minute conversation. And Peter's like, can't find it.
And he's asking us questions about stuff that we don't know the answer to.
Yeah, yeah.
And we're just like, so, how long have you been in the Coast Guard?
Yeah.
How long is this boat?
Yeah, I think my favorite part of that interaction was when he like looks at me and he's like, so do you have any prior boater training? Like, have you ever what do you have for boater training? And I actually had my MMC with me, so I pull out my MMC and I hand it to him, and he takes one look at it, and sees the license that I have, and he's like, oh yeah, you're good. Okay. You guys get off the water and be safe.
Yeah, that kind of.
And so Lindsay came, my wife came, she picked us up, and
that's that.
That was the trip.
We finished.
What a trip.
Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
And those are the 3 keys to success.
Yeah.
It was, I mean, by the end of it, it had gotten, like you were saying, time had blended together, and it had gotten so surreal that at the end it was kind of like a shock back to real life. I mean, we'd only been gone for a week, but it felt like we had been gone
forever.
Months.
You're so isolated. It's like you don't want to go back, but you want to go get a shower. Yeah, who are these people?
Will left us, so I'm not going to thank him. Reagan, thank you.
Seriously,
and
thank
your
you.
company for coming out with us, hanging out with us, and helping us make this happen.
Oh, thank you guys. We were honored to be a part of this and just to even be hanging with y'all. It was a ton of fun. I would do this again in a second, like not even hesitate.
What are you doing Monday?
Blast. Can't go this Monday,
But seriously,
You know.
y'all, if you're in the market for a speaker, Turtlebox is
Yeah,
a
you
family-run
guys-
company. No, seriously. Oh my god. Oh, okay. Gotcha.
I did not realize, I had heard the hype,
Yeah.
but I didn't realize how good the sound was. And I mean, I hadn't ever listened to one, but
Oh, yeah.
having them going at separate sides of the camp. I mean, and we're out,
Oh yeah.
and the wind's blowing 20 miles an hour, and the sound is still amazing.
Yeah, you really need 2 of them.
Like, I would give these guys $400 cash just for them
to
being
give-
who they
Oh,
are.
come on.
Just for looking the way they do, and then I would buy a Turtlebox on top of it.
Now we're getting ridiculous. Yeah, this trip was actually probably my best test case on the product. 4 days,
Sure.
nothing indoors, and it was hot and wet.
Hot, wet,
And,
salty.
It was good to see the product go through the motions and take its steps. So,
And then
ton of fun.
Yeah, so you guys please go check out Turtlebox, and then also go and check out the film's going to be up. It's by now. I don't know when this is coming out, so it's probably up by now on the Going Native YouTube channel. So you guys go check out the full film, like it, comment on it, subscribe to the Going Native channel.
Or don't.
Just do it. So you have to do it. And then if you're listening to this on Apple or Spotify, if you guys could leave a 5-star review and a really nice comment or just a comment, I would appreciate it. And if you're watching it on YouTube, hit like, hit subscribe, all that stuff. We have to go and
We have to
be
put the
social.
mirror on now.
Yeah.
We got a party.
All right. Thank you guys.
Adios.
Bye.
Thank you.